Why you really freeze when you need to act most. Have you ever noticed how, in the most critical moments, something inside you just shuts down? It's not laziness. It's not a lack of willpower. It's something much deeper, almost like a part of you is screaming, "Wait, this isn't right." What if I told you that the procrastination you hate so much might be the most honest way your intuition is trying to save you from a path that isn't yours? Productivity culture sold us a dangerous lie, that hesitating means failing, that stopping means quitting, that any pause means you're not strong enough. But here's the subversive twist. What if your body is right and your programmed mind is wrong? What if, instead of fighting procrastination, you need to decode the message it's trying to send you? Think about it. When you procrastinate something you genuinely want, something that lights you up inside, you don't freeze. You move. Maybe slowly, maybe scared, but you move. Now, when you procrastinate that important task, that project everyone says you should do, that path that looks perfect on paper but drains you inside, that's when you freeze. And it's not because you're weak. It's because some part of you knows you're being forced to perform a life that isn't yours. A study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology revealed that chronic procrastination is more connected to emotional avoidance than poor time management. In other words, you're not running from the task. You're running from what doing that task means to you. From the emptiness, from the disconnection, from the feeling of betraying yourself for crumbs of external approval. Now, here comes the most dangerous mental virus that exists. Perfection. It doesn't come alone. It comes disguised as virtue, as a standard of excellence, as wanting the best for you. But the truth is brutal. Perfection is a control mechanism. It paralyzes you because it creates an unattainable standard that keeps you eternally insufficient, eternally indebted to an idealized version of yourself that will never exist. And you know what the cruelest trick is? Perfection convinces you that you're not ready yet, that you need one more course, one more certification, one more external sign that you deserve to start. Meanwhile, your intuition is right there, knocking on the door, saying, "You already know enough. You already are enough. But this path isn't yours." So what happens? You procrastinate, not because you're incompetent, but because, at some deep level, you know, you're chasing the perfect version of a life someone else designed for you. And your procrastination? It's the last resort of your essence, trying to wake you up before you spend your best years building the most beautiful prison in the world. The real question isn't, how do I stop procrastinating? The question is, what is my procrastination trying to tell me about who I really am and what I really want? If you've felt this, if you've realized you might be fighting against yourself, drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave in the comments which area of your life you procrastinate most, and let's break this down together. How perfection programs you to never be good enough. Now, let's go deeper. Perfection isn't just a high standard. It's a belief system implanted in your mind since childhood, designed to keep you in an infinite loop of inadequacy. And the worst part, you think it's your choice. You think you're trying to be better. But in reality, you're executing code that someone else wrote. Think about it. Where did this idea that you need to be perfect come from? From your parents who were never satisfied? From school that ranked you against others as if you were a product? From social media bombarding you with edited versions of lives that don't even exist? Perfection didn't originate from you. It was installed. And until you uninstall this virus, it will keep sabotaging every genuine move you try to make. Here's the perverse mechanism. Perfection creates a moving target. You reach a goal, and immediately, it tells you it's not enough. You deliver an impeccable project, and it whispers, "But what if it had been better?" You achieve something you've dreamed of for years, and it's already showing you 10 people who achieved more, faster, with more style. Perfection never lets you rest because its goal isn't to improve you, it's to control you. A study from York University showed that perfectionists have significantly higher levels of anxiety, depression, and burnout than people with high but flexible standards. The crucial difference? Perfectionists measure their own worth by the outcome. Healthy people measure worth by effort, learning, and attempt. One traps you, the other frees you. And you know what happens when you live under the tyranny of perfection? You stop trying. Because if you can't do it perfectly, your brain decides it's better to do nothing at all. That's what we call perfectionist paralysis. And then you procrastinate. Not because you don't want to do it, but because the perfection virus convinced you that doing just fine is the same as failing. Now, connect this with intuition. Your intuition doesn't operate on perfection. It operates on truth. It doesn't care if you're the best, the fastest, or the most impressive. It cares if you're being real, if you're following your rhythm, if you're building something that resonates with who you actually are, not who you think you should be. So when you procrastinate that project that should be perfect, what's really happening is an internal conflict. Your external programming is screaming, you have to impress everyone, and your intuition is whispering, but this doesn't even matter to you for real. And you're frozen in the middle, not knowing which voice to follow. Here's the twist. Procrastination is often your internal protection system. It prevents you from wasting energy on things that don't align with who you are. It forces you to confront the dissonance between what you're doing and what you should be doing. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. But it's also the only path to freedom. What if, instead of fighting procrastination, you started listening to it? What if you asked, what am I really avoiding here? Is it the task or is it the lie behind it? Leave in the comments. Where does perfection paralyze you most? At work? In relationships? In your personal projects? I want to know. What if your intuition is saving you from a life that isn't yours? Let's get straight to the most subversive point of all. What if your procrastination is actually an act of unconscious rebellion? What if that resistance you feel isn't weakness, but rather the only part of you that hasn't been completely domesticated by the system? Because look, society needs you to be productive, predictable, and obedient. It needs you to follow the script. And your intuition? It couldn't care less about someone else's script. Intuition doesn't speak the language of logic. It speaks through sensations, discomforts, restlessness you can't explain. That tightness in your chest before an important meeting. That inexplicable tiredness when you think about starting that project. That sudden urge to do anything else except what you should do. It's not self-sabotage. It's information. It's your body telling you, this path is wrong for you. But here's the problem. We were trained to distrust intuition, to call it irrational, emotional, childish. We were taught to value only what can be measured, quantified, justified in a spreadsheet. And while you ignore your body's signals, you sink deeper and deeper into a life that looks good on paper, but empties you from the inside. A study published in the journal Psychological Science demonstrated that intuitive decisions, especially in areas where we have accumulated experience, are often more accurate than purely rational decisions. Why? Because intuition processes thousands of variables that the conscious mind can't analyze. It knows things you don't yet know. You know. So when you procrastinate that career everyone thinks is amazing, when you postpone that relationship that seems perfect, when you freeze before that opportunity you should want, maybe it's not you being difficult. Maybe it's you being wise. Maybe it's your internal system protecting you from investing years in something that will leave you empty, exhausted, and regretful. Now, connect this with perfection. Perfection keeps you trapped because it convinces you that you need all the answers before you start. But intuition sets you free because it tells you, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know if this resonates or not. Perfection paralyzes you with infinite planning. Intuition moves you with a simple, yes, this feels right, or no, this isn't for me. And here's the kicker, when you finally stop fighting against procrastination and start listening to it, you discover patterns. You realize you always procrastinate the same things. Always the projects that were imposed on you. Always the goals you adopted to please someone. Always the paths that seem safe, but leave you dead inside. And when do you stop procrastinating? When something finally aligns with who you truly are. Procrastination isn't the problem. It's the symptom. The problem is you trying to live a life designed by external expectations while suffocating the only voice that really knows what's right for you. And the more you ignore that voice, the louder it needs to scream. And it screams through paralysis, self-sabotage, chronic exhaustion. So the question you need to ask isn't, how do I stop procrastinating? The question is, what am I doing in my life that's so misaligned with me that my own body is preventing me from continuing? If this makes sense to you, drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And tell me in the comments, what was the last time you ignored your intuition and regretted it later? How to decode your procrastination's message and take back control. Now that you understand procrastination can be a signal and not a sentence, the question is, what do you do with this? How do you transform this understanding into real action? Because understanding is powerful, but applying is revolutionary. And this is where most people freeze again, because they expect a perfect manual, a foolproof step-by-step process. But the truth is that dismantling the programming of perfection and reconnecting with intuition is a personal, organic, and yes, imperfect process. First step. Stop demonizing procrastination. Seriously, every time you catch yourself procrastinating, instead of spiraling into guilt and self-deprecation, pause, breathe, and ask, what am I really avoiding here? Not the task, the feeling, the truth. Maybe you're avoiding the feeling of inadequacy that task triggers. Maybe you're avoiding confronting that it doesn't truly interest you. Maybe you're avoiding admitting you need to change direction. Second step. Question the source of obligation. Where did the idea that you have to do this come from? Was it a genuine choice of yours or an absorbed expectation? Your parents, your friends, society, social media? Who's in command of your life? Because if you're living on autopilot of other people's expectations, procrastination will continue being the emergency brake that prevents you from accelerating in the wrong direction. Third step. Experiment with the concept of good enough. Perfection paralyzes you because it creates an impossible standard. But what if you allowed yourself to do something just reasonable, just functional, just honest? Research shows that people who adopt flexible excellence standards, instead of rigid perfectionism, have greater productivity and satisfaction. Why? Because they finish things. They learn by doing. They evolve through imperfect action, not through perfect paralysis. Fourth step. Strengthen the connection with your intuition. And no, this isn't magic. It's practice. Start paying attention to your body's responses. Does that project leave you energized or exhausted? Does that conversation expand you or compress you? Does that goal inspire you or oppress you? Your body always knows. The problem is you were trained to ignore it. So start small, one decision per day based on what feels right, not what seems logical. Fifth step. Accept that the process is messy. You'll make mistakes. You'll procrastinate again. You'll sometimes confuse legitimate fear with intuition. You'll other times confuse laziness with wisdom. And that's okay, because you're unlearning decades of conditioning. You're rewriting the code. And this doesn't happen overnight with the 5-step method. It happens through trial, error, adjustment, recalibration. It happens when you stop seeking perfect transformation and start living subversive evolution. Because at the end of the day, that's what this channel is. Subversive evolution. It's not about optimizing you for the system. It's about hacking the system so you can finally be you. Not an improved version. Not a more productive version. Just the real, raw, imperfect, and free version. So if you made it this far, you already know you're not alone in this journey. Drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to not miss the next content. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what's the first thing you're going to do differently from now on? The revolution begins when you stop fighting against yourself and start listening to what you've always known.